Welcome, and thank you all so much for coming. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Norma Loeb, and I'm founder and executive director of the Lewy Body Dementia Resource Center. We are so excited about hosting this event. I want to particularly thank our sponsors, and all of the sponsors are indicated on the program card, and I want to especially thank the silver sponsors, 80th Street Residents, Alexandria Real Estate Equities, and the Robert Halper Foundation. Thank you all. I'm sure there are many of you here who don't know much about Lewy body dementia at all, so I'd like to tell you a little bit about it. It is by no means rare. It is the second most common form of progressive dementia after Alzheimer's disease. There are more people who have LBD than are HIV positive. There are more people who have LBD than have ALS, cerebral palsy, and muscular dystrophy combined. And I'd like to tell you about a few of the symptoms to show you the difference. For someone who has Lewy body dementia, they have problems with cognition. They also have problems with Parkinson's symptoms. It doesn't necessarily mean that they have a tremor, which most people think. They may have rigidity in their arms and legs, there's slowness of movement, and there's a shuffling when they walk. But in addition to that, and to really make the difference for people to understand why it's so difficult to tell the difference and to diagnose, is they also have fluctuations. So they can be talking about something that's going on in politics with you today, and then later on today or tomorrow, they may not be able to answer a simple question. And in addition to that, there are hallucinations. And an early sign is a REM sleep disorder where people are acting out their dreams. So there are many, and there are other symptoms as well. So why is it so important to diagnose this disease correctly? Why do we want to bring awareness so much? There's no cure for Alzheimer's disease right now, or for Parkinson's, or for Lewy body. It's because people with Lewy body dementia are extremely sensitive to medications. And given the wrong ones can make them much worse, can give them hallucinations, and could also possibly put them into a coma. So this is why we founded the Resource Center. My mom had the disease for 18 long years. And I knew that a lot of resources were needed and help because I never wanted anyone to go through what I went through. So along with my 4 colleagues, Marissa, Eileen, Susan, and Suzanne, we founded the Lewy Body Dementia Resource Center as we all had parents who have passed away from this disease. We have resources on our website covering not just New York, Florida, and California. We're adding states that have vast resources, but we also have resources of physicians in every single state of the country and in 14 other countries. We have the only live helpline in the country for Lewy body dementia, and we now have 5 support groups in New York. We are a nonprofit organization, and so all of our funding comes from generous people like you, and we are so grateful that you're here this evening. Thank you. Why are we here tonight? We are so happy to be able to bring awareness and are thankful for Director Tyler Norwood and for Susan Schneider-Williams for bringing together this film in honor of Robin Williams and to help us bring more and more awareness so people know what Lewy body dementia is. This is the very first screening in a theater anywhere. So I'm very proud to be able to do this. Thank you. And who better to introduce the film than the director, Tyler Norwood.
Okay, intros for films should always be very short. So basically, thank you all so much for coming. All the things Norma said are completely true. We're very excited to have you at this sneak peek well before the film's been released to any sort of general audience. We don't have a release date yet for the film, but we thought if we could do some good for the Lewy Body Dementia Resource Center, we were all aboard. So you guys are part of that tonight, and I can't wait for you to see the film.
I feel like we should all take a collective deep breath after that.
Ready? To the count of 3.
Yes.
Very good.
I had wondered yesterday, I sent to my friend Mary Lou Falcone, who was here, I said, I think it's going to be very difficult for the people who are coming here this evening who have Lewy body dementia and for their families to watch this film. And she said, we need to bear witness, and we're better to do that in a loving, supporting environment like this, and I agree. So it feels that way to me, so thank you for all being here. We're going to spend some time and give the audience time to ask some questions, and I thought I would just ask Susan and Tyler 1 or 2. And basically, Susan, I know that you didn't want to speak too much to mass media at the beginning and to share your story, but what made you want to get involved in this film with Tyler?
Well, as it covered in the film, it was, and I think pretty much everyone knows, in the beginning, it would have been really hard to get a word out. And as I said, it took a while to get to the bottom of what really happened. And this, as I started to learn more when I dug into what this disease is about and started correlating the science behind the symptoms of what we experienced, what I was uncovering felt so incredibly important. You know, Robin was not the only person who had this. There are 1.4 million people in the United States, and that's a very conservative number because of the lack of diagnosis. So it felt incredibly important, and there were a lot of things happening at the time because of the misinformation, which there were a lot of creative headlines and ideas about this as people were going through their own sort of trying to grieve and grapple with what the perception was. So it just felt like really my mission, like our mission, like it was something Robin and I had to do. There was some reason that this happened and that it happened to us. And then pretty soon, our paths crossed. Tyler lives like 15 minutes from us, and I had actually come across Tyler's work while Robin was alive, and it's kind of a long story, but it really boils down. If it wasn't my mom having a horrible habit of cutting out articles and making me read them, we wouldn't all be here right now. Thanks, Mom. It's really that simple. In the article, it mentioned a framer that she thought I, might enjoy using for my work, and someone had done a documentary on that framer, and that it was a 20-minute short called Naples Yellow, done by Tyler Norwood, and it was a beautiful film. I thought, well, I'll just look at the film, and I looked it up and I showed it. I thought it was incredible, and I showed it to Rob, and I said, you got to see this. This is an amazing piece. It's about an artist, a pigment maker, and a framer, and it's 20 minutes, and it's beautiful. And Robin loved it. And so time went on as I learned more about this disease and this process. My framer, who is now my framer from the article from my mom, said, you really should sit down with Tyler, and this story needs to be told. And again, that's why we're all here. So,
thank you, Susan. Tyler, I'd love to give you a chance to talk about how the film came together, or any particular parts you would love to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, Susan covered it, definitely. Like, that's how it came together. She called me. The thing that I think was really interesting is the path that she was on in terms of discovery, and I think what Stanley said so well in the film is people deal with grief in different ways. And that energy has to go somewhere, and I know that for a lot of people it's tough to not kind of implode underneath the weight of what somebody might go through in Susan's situation. But she was able to do a lot of positive with it, discover all these things, share what she learned, and found a way to channel all this into something really beautiful. And so when she'd reached out to me, she said, let's talk about the science. Let's get really deep on sort of the mechanics of what this thing is and spread. And the thing that it really stuck with me was Susan, it's going to be 3 years from the moment we're having this conversation until we're sitting in a room like this. What's going to sustain you through that? Because science isn't going to do it. And she started telling me the stories about what her and Robin went through. And that I was all on board for. And so I said, look, I can't commit to anything because, again, I have to go there. And so I said, let's sit down and let's do 9 hours of interview. Tell me everything you want to tell me, just me and you. And then we'll make a decision about whether we want to go forward with this. You too, right? Maybe you don't like me. And we did that time, and I fell in love with Robin and Susan. Just as, Susan's sitting up here today as a person in the film, but for me, she really is kind of the star witness to this thing that almost nobody knew about because of kind of the sloppy journalism that had been done around when Robin passed. So it was that was someone I could build a case around, and I was, you kind of be a good judge of character when you're a filmmaker and a journalist, and I trusted her. She was so genuine. She's so open about some things that are really, she goes everywhere that you want to go. She has that strength about her, which is, endlessly exciting to me that there's people like Susan who can do that. I couldn't do that. And so that started our journey. And then we started adding people who were in Robin's life in really meaningful ways. And the thing that I thought would be really powerful is to give somebody an experience of intimacy, of what would it be like if you really knew Robin, if you really were able to sit with him and understand what he'd gone through. And would that erase the bad journalism? And so we'll see. But that was the thing I set out to do.
Thank you, Tyler. It's such a powerful film, and I'm sure a lot of people have questions, so I'd rather take them from the audience than me ask others. So please raise your hand if you have questions. Yes. Denise is coming with the microphone.
I'm sorry, it's a wonderful movie, wonderful. There was one question continually on my mind, which is, you had all these testings going on, and what was the missing link? Why wasn't it diagnosed?
So Lewy body disease is incredibly difficult to diagnose, as I learned once I got into the science. And I realized that Robin and I didn't get the worst care, and we didn't get the best. It's very typical not to get a diagnosis because this disease, it's invisible right now. There is no biomarker. When you saw the scans in the film of Robin's brain from the MRI, I was able to go through that about a year afterwards and look through. And if anyone's aware, MRIs are pretty thorough. There's every section, every angle. Nowhere could we see on any of those slides Lewy body dementia, because we don't have the capability yet. But it was the invisible terrorist that had taken over nearly every region of his brain and brainstem, but we couldn't see it. We didn't have the technology yet. These are things that the scientists are working on now, and there's a lot of progress being made. So with Lewy body dementia, in a way you could say that the Parkinson's was the end of the disease for him. It wasn't the beginning, okay? Because in Parkinson's and Lewy body dementia, they have the same essential underlying shared biology, and that is the Lewy bodies themselves, which is a normal protein called alpha-synuclein that's become misfolded and starts creating traffic jams, and neurons start dying. And so this is a question I used to get a lot. Well, did he have Parkinson's? Well, yes, he did. That was an accurate diagnosis. That's easier to diagnose from visual because it's the clinical manifestations, the shuffling gait, the tremors, the stooped posture, the frozen stance that we talked about. And the Lewy body dementia has over 40 symptoms. And a lot of those, as Dr. Miller talked about so well, is they appear to be what we'd think is psychiatric or behavioral, but they're based in the fact that his neurons are dying. And so this issue is something that I think many people who are touched by this disease and diseases like it are really frustrated with, because it's not like you have a tumor and you can say, there, that's the culprit. And then your neighbors will understand, your children will understand, people will understand, oh, it's a tumor. That's what's making them do that. This is the same thing. And what are you talking about? Can you get them the microphone, please? And what's your name, by the way?
I'm sorry, my name is Glenn Vincent.
Hi.
It was just, maybe it was just my problem. The brain, we kept seeing this picture of the brain, and we see these little black things all over it. So we thought, oh, those are Lewy bodies, or that's a sign of it. But
Yeah, so what they did is a particular type of scan on post-mortem brain slides that reveal it, but you have to be able to remove the brain to see it.
oh, okay.
Okay,
Which
so
is
yeah, so in
tough.
other words, it's only an autopsy. Yes, great question. By the way, I could talk about science all night.
Yeah.
I'm just warning you.
I want to mention also that Dr. Susan Bresman was supposed to be with us today. She had an emergency in her family. She probably could have answered that question even better than we can, although I think they did a terrific job. But I just wanted to mention that. Who else has a question?
Just by the mobility
So
testing.
your example, thank you for that. In your example, what you went through is quite common, where this disease is commonly misdiagnosed as Alzheimer's, or it's misdiagnosed or switch diagnosed. Sometimes people are diagnosed with Alzheimer's first and it's switched to Lewy body dementia later. One of the telltale signs of Lewy body dementia is hallucinations. So to clear up, because this stuff is very confusing, believe me, the way they're diagnosing right now is predominantly by putting together, they don't have a biomarker, there's no cerebral spinal fluid or blood test yet, or PET scan. They are working on those possibilities. What they are able to do, it's simply by deduction, by piecing together, okay, do they, again, of these symptoms that they know of, and there's just not a lot of awareness out there. Again, our situation is it's more common than not. However, now people are starting to get diagnosed while they're alive, which is better. Because in my book, we would have loved a diagnosis.
Thank you, Susan.
Yeah.
I saw somebody
Thank
else
you.
had their hand up.
Hi, my name is Annie Gottlieb, and one thing that was reported but not discussed in the film was that Robin had major surgery sometime before he developed the symptoms of Lewy body dementia. So did my husband, so did your husband, Rosemary, and many of us whose family members or spouses developed Lewy body dementia know that it may have been exacerbated, precipitated in some way by general anesthesia. Now, if that were known, perhaps that's one subject for study. Obviously, you can't have major heart surgery without general anesthesia. You can have knee replacement, which my husband had, with something like, what's it called, epidural. Yeah, you can have a more local. But if there were some way to identify people at risk for Lewy body, and if they could find a way, a mode of anesthesia that didn't trigger a different kind of general anesthesia. I don't know what it is that is generally used for general anesthesia, but I do know that many of us reported this experience to each other, that Lewy symptoms followed upon having major surgery.
Yes, we've heard that from many people, and I can tell you that from the support groups. I've heard it many times. Because we don't have a physician here this evening, though we had wanted to, she may have been able to explain that a little bit better. I know more research needs to be done, and I can say on behalf of Dr. Bresman, she was going to be talking about how important clinical studies are. So for anyone who's interested in getting involved there, they need to do as much research as possible, but they need people for studies. And on our website at lbdny.org, you'll be able to look up clinical studies. There's a website that shows all of the studies throughout the country. That might help, is the only thing that I can say at this moment. Thank you.
I'm Rosemary Dawson. My husband also had Lewy body dementia. First, I want to thank you so much for the film that conveyed things that I think the casual viewer might not pick up on, but you covered so many of the symptoms so clearly. And I really appreciate your vulnerability and your candor in conveying so much that many of us know and aren't able to reach the number of people that you will be able to reach. So thank you. But a big concern is, how is the film going to be released? How can we get millions of people to see it and begin to understand what's plaguing so many families?
We're working on it.
Thank you. This is a wonderful film.
Wait, we're
Go-
going to
go
expand on that one time out.
Sure.
Can you give more?
Film distribution. So yeah, I mean, the concept is to get this with a network that has a system that allows it to get into millions of homes. Right now, those efforts are underway. We've also got a really great, if I'm giving the full answer, we've got a great group of consulting partners who are helping stage events like this around the country. And Blue Shield of California is currently contemplating a pretty major impact screening campaign that they would put on that would actually go to physicians, so that they would be more aware of this disease, and also palliative care around diagnosis and things like that. So we're working.
Should I go
All
now?
of them.
Yeah. My name's Pamela Rosenblum. My husband was diagnosed with Lewy body dementia about 2.5 years ago. He was first diagnosed with Parkinson's similarly, and because he had much more dramatic movement. And I guess I just want to support your statement, Susan, that if you could have had the diagnosis, how helpful that would have been on so many levels. And one level is that there are actually medications that help handle some of the symptoms, and such as the constant waking up at night. And we've gotten a lot of help with that, and even some dementia medication that's more helpful for Lewy body dementia than for Alzheimer's. So again, I guess I'm just supporting how important it is to get a diagnosis so that people can get what help is out there. It can't be cured, but getting some support around the symptoms is really helpful.
Yeah, and I might not be the natural one to go first on this, but I will say in terms of making this film, that was the thing that after talking to everyone and really understanding Susan's story, that was the thing that I came away with, is this is an incurable disease. This was always going to end in some way that was distasteful, but a diagnosis would have changed everything. And Susan and Robin have this beautiful view out of the back of their house over the water. And I have this image in my mind of if they'd have been able to get that diagnosis, they could have sat there together, they could have held hands, they could have looked out and thought about, what's the rest of this look like for us, and how can we stay together through this. And so the thing that you hear Susan sort of going over and understanding, I think more and more now, is the idea of that would have freed Robin, right? The idea that he didn't get that diagnosis kept him in a bit of a prison of, maybe I can fix this, maybe this is my fault. So that's the thing, that we don't need a cure, at least for this film, to have ended differently. It's just the idea that at least Robin's story could have been much different if somebody would have said, let's run this test or that test, or it could be this, and got a bit closer to freeing him up from that prison of thinking that he could just work his way out of this, which is a really tough way to have things end, I think.
I just want to say from the science side on that as well, is when you have a diagnosis, then that starts bringing more data to the scientists. They need something to work with, and that means getting accurate diagnosis while someone is alive. And it's huge for many reasons. And it puts the power back in the people who actually have the disease then. It gives them their power back by knowing what it is. Then they have the choice what to do with what time they have left with their loved ones and their families. And that's everything. So.
Thank you so much, Susan and Tyler. I know that we're going to go into reception now. I'm sure everyone is hungry and maybe thirsty. I wanted to thank all of you for being here, particularly Tyler for making this film and Susan Williams for participating in it and for being
Can I take
with
a
us.
moment and just acknowledge a few people?
Oh, please do.
Because what was great is, so
Please.
this was sort of a sneak peek of the film, and it was a great opportunity for the people who made the film to be here. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, the producer of the film, Ben Sinclair, is here. The sound mixer, Dylan Hurley's here. Aaron Drake, who composed the film, is here. And some of the people who generously donated to the film are here. And also we even have Stanley Wilson is in the audience tonight, which was really special. And he brought a few people from Juilliard who went to school with Robin, which is like, this is a great group to be with, and yeah.
And to add on to that, I don't know if anyone got to see at the end of the film, but we had our consulting partners who we're so extremely grateful for, the Michael J. Fox Foundation, the Parkinson's Foundation, the American Brain Foundation. Who else? There's like 5.
LBD.
Oh my God.
I thought you had it. I was tuned out.
Okay, Lewy Body Dementia Association and LBD. I always mess it up.
It's easier to say it than
I know
remember.
everybody has a hard time with our name, so I'm going to say it loud and clear that we're the Resource Center.
Yes.
We're the Lewy Body Dementia Resource Center, and we're the only one in New York. So I'm saying that again. And thank you. In closing, we know the name of the film is Robin's Wish. And I know everyone here feels that we all wish that there was a cure for Lewy body dementia, but there isn't at this point, and we hope there will be sometime in the near future. In the meantime, though, we are here, and all of you are here, bringing awareness, support, and particularly love. And I'm personally so appreciative of that. And in remembrance of this special night, you were all given a little gift when you walked in. And because the name of the film is Robin's Wish, it is a wishing stone with the word love in remembrance of this night and for all those whom we've lost to this disease, and particularly for Robin Williams' caring heart. So thank you all, and I hope you remember that, and I look forward to seeing you in the reception area.